Hey, good morning, team. It is Tuesday, April 18th. I'm Amy Corr, and here I am again with Kevin Van Eck, and we are out of the Goose Island office. We have a great topic today. We're going to be talking about pricing, but not just any old pricing. We're going to be talking about pricing it right at the start. As we're seeing some shifts in the market, we think this is a great conversation to have right now. So make sure you've got your coffee, tea, whatever it may be on this awesome April morning, and let's jump into the next episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
Yes, good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Pricing, hot topic, because the market's changed. You know it's changed, and depending what's happening in your market, you understand what's going on with pricing and positioning, but do your clients? And are you able to articulate what's happening very clearly so clients follow your lead when you have a listing opportunity and you're positioning their property on the market to get them to where they want to go?
Yeah, super important right now. You know, Kevin and I are having a lot of conversations with agents. We're doing a lot of coaching classes, talking about pricing, talking about articulating your value. And, one of the things that's really coming up is the fact that for many agents, and every market is different, but that in some of these markets, we're starting to see a push on pricing. And we're starting to see some properties sitting on the market if they miss the mark. So we thought this was a really important time to start thinking about, are you pricing it right from the get-go? So the first thing we want you to really be thinking about is a process that we've talked about often, comes from Ninja as well, but it's going through the funnel process with your clients. And I actually love using the term the funnel process with your clients, kind of explaining to them the method behind your madness of how you look at pricing, because we have to remember that so much of what they're seeing are national headlines. They're getting nuggets and snippets coming from news pieces, things that they see online, and oftentimes what they're seeing there doesn't translate to what's happening in their neighborhood. So when you talk about going through a funnel process with them, we have to remember what that is. That starts with kind of talking about the macro market, being able to point out and say to them, hey, listen, I know what the headlines are saying. I know that we are seeing that in some areas, things are moving incredibly fast and there is absolutely no inventory. But let's then narrow down into what we are seeing in more of our micro market. So what is the days on market that we're seeing in your area? Month supply of inventory, right? Going through the trends that we are seeing in the more micro pocket of real estate. But then we really get down to their neighborhood and their block, right? Because we all know real estate is hyper local. Right. And we can even see in one neighborhood on the east side, things could be moving incredibly fast. But if you move just over a certain street onto the west side, we could see such an interesting and small dynamic that can make a great impact. So remember to take the time to go through this funnel process with your clients and get them there and lean in and say, I get it. I understand that the headlines that we see may give you a very different interpretation of what's happening in the market, but I want to help and show you the story of really what is going on in your neighborhood, your school district, and on your block. That's going to be a much better way to get them away from unrealistic pricing and have them start understanding, okay, even though I'm hearing and seeing certain things, you're giving me insight and information into what's really happening, whether I like it or not, in my neighborhood and on my street.
That's right. They may not want to hear it, but you have you have to show it to them. And that leads to point number 2, which is showing is better than telling. And this comes from Ninja as well. So your clients are all different, right? Anyone who's a potential seller, some of them might be data focused, some of them might be more story focused. You have to have both. But you can't just tell people what's happening in the market. You have to show them. And that's where really graphs and charts come in handy. You may have some data folks who want to see spreadsheets and averages and all of this. But in reality, if you can tell a story using graphs and charts, it's going to be much easier for people to visualize the trends that you were just talking about. So make sure you use graphs and charts. The second piece is when you are showing comps or relevant properties or you're talking about positioning, you have to use stories. You have to use stories because people can relate to stories, and it's really important. When you pick your relevant properties that you're pricing with, you want to make sure that you have 2 different types of stories. That you have a success story or multiple, maybe 2 success stories, but then also cautionary tales. And we know they're out there. You can probably name the addresses off the top of your head, the properties that overpriced, have dropped the price, but are still on the market. And if you can convey these stories clearly to your clients, they're going to want to be the success story and they're not going to want to be the cautionary tale. And then lastly with this and showing is better than telling, here's the rule. Don't bring too much information, right? So there was one time where an agent said to me they felt more credible the more paper they took to their pricing meeting. Not necessarily the case, because what we're going to do is we're going to confuse our people. And so make sure you bring the most relevant, the most impactful data, charts, graphs, and stories, rather than thinking that the more you talk, the more or better they are going to understand what you're saying. So make sure then once they get what you're selling, meaning they understand the price, stop selling it.
Yeah.
Once they buy into the price and you have agreement and collaboration, stop talking about it. Move forward.
Yeah, I love that. And what I love about that is, I would do the same. I would narrow down to probably like 12 comps. But what I would bring in my bag, not necessarily pull out, is all the work that I did to get there. So we all know every once in a while they'll say, but what about the house at 123 Main Street?
Right.
And what I found was powerful is you pulled your deck of comps, but you can always pull out 123 Main Street and show all the reasons why you wrote down that maybe it wasn't a great fit, and kind of really embracing like, yes, I understand why you could see maybe that was a comp, but here's why I ruled it out.
Exactly.
And it gives you even more credibility too, because yes, you've narrowed down to these 12 comps because you know what you're doing, right?
Good advice.
So let's talk about though, if there's, even though you've done an incredible job because you are a rock star agent, but we do get those clients that sometimes still really do want to push on the price. And let's also recognize that this is a market where we're seeing that happen. What I first want you to recognize or think about is we never want to make a client feel bad that they want to push pricing, that they want to try and get a certain number for their house. Because let's face it, we've all sold before, and I know myself, I'm the same way, because there's an emotional attachment for them. And there's pride in the fact that they lived in this house and it was wonderful for them. So what you want to do is be making sure that you really kind of take care of those emotions first, and, being able to say, I really understand why, this is such a special house, and I understand, where your head's at as it relates to pricing. And as much as I'd love to get you X, Y, or Z for it, the market is not necessarily telling us that based off of the data. But if they still want to push, I think you're really comfortable in just having a conversation and saying, okay, well then let's talk about it. Let's talk about what if we do try to push it to the price you want. And let's say they're pushing to $799. What is our plan B? What if we put it on at $799 and we don't get an offer? I know that you are really interested in a couple of houses that are in the market right now. Things are moving so fast. Are you in a position where we could put an offer in and you could carry this house longer than you intended to? So talk about the plan B scenarios in a very constructive way. It doesn't have to be defensive, and just get them comfortable with whether or not maybe they'll say, you know what, we want to give it a shot. We're willing to carry the house for 6 months. Okay, great. That's good information for you to know. But odds are when you're asking some of these questions, most people are not in that situation. And so talking through the plan B scenario might help get them a little bit more realistic. The other thing I'm going to say though is we are in a market where we are seeing, let's say you encourage them to list at $799, but they really want to do $825 or even $850. But in these markets, in some of them, I get it. Sometimes we push pricing and we don't think we're going to get it, and miraculously we do. So there might be times where you sort of feel like there is an opportunity for us, but I don't want to lose control of the client in maintaining what I know we need to do. So here's what I'd recommend. If you decide to do it at what we call their price, and let's say you list it at $825, I think you do it with certain terms attached, meaning you can say something like this. Here's what I'd like to do. Let's go ahead and price it at $825. I know that's where you'd like to start. Let's see what the market tells us. But here's the thing. If we do not get 2 second showings and 2 people that seem really, really interested, or we do not have an offer in place after 2 weeks, then we're going to make an adjustment to $799, which is where I think we're going to need to be. And then if after 2 weeks we're still not getting the right amount of traffic, we're going to have to adjust again to $775. Get them to agree to that now. The beauty of it is nothing bad has happened yet. They're expecting that $825 is going to do it, but what you've just built in, and you can actually have them sign off on these on the listing agreement, is you just built in 2 price reductions before it even went to market. So thinking about ways in which you can allow them to have an opportunity to maybe test the price only if you feel like it's okay, but then building in an immediate opportunity to adjust and go after the market if needed. So making sure you just take control even if there is the scenario that they want to overprice.
Yeah, that's great advice. Because you're setting expectations up front for what's going to happen down the road in case they don't get an offer.
Right. And it shows as if you've seen this before. And you can say, I've done this with other clients. Let's go this route.
Right.
Yep.
Excellent. And fourth and finally, let's talk about words. Words are important. The words you use are very important. And you just said it actually multiple times. So I don't know if everyone watching picked up on it. But it's using words instead of your opinion or how you feel like or think the market will go. It's talking about the data and the market telling us. So sometimes when we say things, we say, especially when it comes to pricing, we say, I think we should price here. That's not the best way to say it. You could say it that way, many of us do. But the best way to say it would be the data is telling us that we should price here. The market is showing us that we should price here. Because then it's not your opinion. It'll reduce the number of objections. It references back to the data, which you can't argue with. So when someone wants to test the market, those words are important because you don't have to backtrack and you don't invite in the objections. You're pointing to the data saying the market and the data is telling us X. And when you do that, you'll find that that pricing conversation goes much smoother. So add that specific phrase, the market or data is telling us or showing us. Add that to your repertoire, and then you'll find those pricing conversations tweaked just a little bit better.
Yep, that's right. So good luck with that pricing out there. We hope that you found these 4 tips helpful. Make it a great Tuesday. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. But until then, remember, you got this.